Awesome. All right. Um, so joy into pain. And so I'm Kevin Lawrence with Lawrence & Co. Growth Advisors. We got Tim here, my associate, who is going to help me to kind of co-facilitate this today. He's a master of the technology and helping us to be on top of it. So there's this whole saying in the past of, no pain, no gain. It's something that you hear people talk about. It relates to, hard workouts and things like that. And there is some truth to that, but that's not what we're talking about today. In reality, what we're talking about today is to take the pain to make it feel like a gain. People are, little bit of pain right now with what's happening in the world. And there's always other things that happen that put us into a weird place. But can you shift from pain to gain? And that's really what we're talking about today. It sounds easy, sounds logical, but making it happen is actually the hard part of this. And we'll share some ideas with you on that. And what I want you to get up front is that there's always two sides to every coin. And what that really means is there's always something good about a situation and almost always something that could be perceived as not good, no matter what it is. It's like I have my coffee here. And I could be grateful that I have this coffee, or I could be thinking, it's not quite as good as my favorite coffee shop. And I miss the coffee from my favorite coffee shop because it's closed. So in any moment, you can see something good, or you can see something bad. And what I want you to get and understand is the human brains all get wired differently. And some people will automatically see good or bad in different situations. And their brain makes the choice for them, and they're not even aware of it. And then they have to live with the feelings and thoughts and experience they have. So hear me again, is your brain often automatically perceives one side of the coin or the other and takes you down the road of feeling happy about something or down the road of feeling not happy about something. Well, the truth is those roads always exist. Actually, there's so many different possibilities. There's so many sides of so many different coins. You could probably take 50 different roads with any situation. I could probably have 50 different thoughts and feelings about my coffee here this morning. But what we don't realize is our brain does it on autopilot, and we start to believe there's only one road, and then we live with that road and get lost with that road and forget that we could pull out and go many different ways and see many different perspectives, but we're lost in our thoughts and our unconscious patterns, when really we need to zoom out sometimes and see all these other possibilities and then choose one that either serves us better or makes us feel better, especially in times like we're in right now where things are a little scarier and weird. So the secret, and this is kind of out of my book, Your Oxygen Mask First, the secret is to find the meaning behind your pain. The meaning you choose changes your perspective, and your perspective changes everything. And to realize that you can consciously choose your perspective any given time, just like you can turn around and you can look all kinds of different ways at any given time. You can do that with your thoughts about any situation if you train it and train your brain to be a tool you use versus your brain running you and treating you like a tool. So to make the most of today, we want to use the chat. There's a chat function, and you can post it to all participants or to just Tim and I. Tim's going to be running the chat with us today and reminding me when there's some good questions or things I need to do. We do a lot of co-hosting these days. It works really, really well. So leverage the chat. There's also a Q&A button if you want. You can also raise your hand if you have a question that you want to ask, and we can unmute you if time allows. Q&A I talked about, raising your hand I talked about, and we'll unmute you so you can speak if we get into that. So participation, there used to be a thing when I was a kid growing up about this thing about participation, getting people active out there doing things in their community. I think it was Hal Johnson and somebody else were the people who were the spokespeople for it most recently. And so we want you to think about participation today and put your thoughts in chat and share here. And Tim is the prize master. So people that really share a lot. And by the way, Tim, we got somebody from that last call, a couple of people from that last webinar we did this morning. I also want to send something too, if you can remember that. But so Tim's gonna be acknowledging those who add to the conversation. So please do. We're recording this, as I said. If we use examples, we'll always use first names. And if you're sharing things in the chat or otherwise, we suggest that you do, so that we are respectful of other people. So our firm, Lawrence & Co., we're here to help CEOs and leaders have it all, success in business and a rewarding life. And today's module is about both. because it's about the mindset you have in different challenging circumstances. We're fortunate to have experience working with leaders all around the world. Now, virtually all around the world. I don't get to go to all these great places for the near future, unfortunately, but so we've got a lot of experience and incredible perspectives based on working with all of these people. I mean, our team combined has more than 50,000 hours of coaching and working with CEOs and execs and frontline leaders as well, working through their challenges, opportunities, and issues. The foundation of our work is in a book I was a key driver behind called Scaling Up for Growing Businesses. A couple years ago, I wrote the book, Your Oxygen Mask First, which is about you and scaling yourself. And then we do a lot of work around top grading and getting the right people in the right seats in your company so your company can perform real well. And as a company, we do keynotes. They're all virtual now. Strategic planning sessions to help align and focus teams on what matters most. Executive coaching one-to-one. Leadership education, where we go and teach teams principles and help them grow as leaders. And then screening and hiring with a top grading methodology to make sure that we only let the right people in the company and that they go into a job that they're going to thrive in. And the root of all of this is, if the leaders can't scale, the company won't grow. And if we get stuck in our mindset and we get stuck with some bad thinking, we can't grow. And the reality is if we can't pivot our thinking, then the company can't survive what's going on, or we can't. We will get stuck. So mental agility right now is really important. This is our team. Awesome team. This is the core team that we work with on a daily basis. We have other coaches, other parts of the world. So key points for today, we're going to dig into. We're going to get your perspective. I'm going to talk about stress and mental health and how it relates to this mindset, the victim mentality and the trap with that, seeing the gift in the curse, which is what we're trying to get you to, gratitude, venting, and therapy, some of the best tools. And then the wow challenge we'll talk about at the end. So we got a poll. We have a 3-question poll. Scroll down and answer all 3 and then hit that magical submit button so we can see what you're thinking. So Tim, let's go. So please vote.
It. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Tim. Thank you very much. So when you're done, hit that submit button. Hey, Al, good to see you. Haven't had a chance to talk to you for a while. And Mark, Michelle, nice to see you. Yuri, I look forward to meeting you one day. Wow, and my mom's on here today too. Wow, hey mom. It's lots of familiar names here. That's awesome. Some of you I haven't met. Awesome. Hey Lynn, haven't met you yet. Mo. All right. So what's your current mindset? This, with what's going on. How are you feeling about it? I'm actually kind of a little bit in both camps. If I had to choose one, I'll tell you my answer afterwards. So we've got 57% of the votes. We'd like to get a couple more people to vote. How do you expect your enjoyment of life? And where do you expect to spend more time?
Give it 5 more seconds. There we go.
All right. And we hit the magic 70%. We get one more we can push over. Let's get one more in there, a little more. Okay, good enough. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to share the results. And they should, if you're not seeing them on your screen, there, you should be seeing them on your screen now. So interesting. So a quarter of you are saying that this sucks. Understandable. A quarter of you are like, whatever. 50%, this is good. That's interesting to see. I go through the sucks on the heart and seeing people really getting hurt by this, but the good because it's forcing us to grow and get better. But my default landing is good in the end. Sometimes I like to vent a bit. How do you expect the enjoyment of life to change post-COVID? 17% worse, 17% no change, 58% better. That's awesome. Tim, you want to grab a screenshot of that? That is awesome. And then 8% much better. I believe once we get through the weird stuff that it definitely will be better. I don't know exactly how, but I know human beings always come out on top. And then where do you expect to spend more time 12 months from now? In your life and with yourself. No one's going to spend more time on work. Understandable. I mean, I'm working about as much as I can possibly. I'm actually going to take some time off this weekend and chill a little bit. Disconnect for 24 hours at least. Awesome. So thank you for sharing your mindset on this. So we got the questions. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so oxygen mask first. I want to just touch on a couple things out of this, and then we're going to dig right into the chapter. The main thought from the book is that there's no in between with leadership. It'll either slowly destroy your life or force you to get stronger. And congratulations, you're getting a whole class on getting stronger right now. Everything that's coming up forces us to find a way to adapt, which human beings are great at, and get stronger and more resilient by nature. But sometimes we need some additional help and some tools. And keeping our head above the clouds so we can keep the right perspective and seeing the good in this is hard sometimes, understandable, especially if you have serious situations happening around you, which I could empathize with. But trying to keep our head out of the clouds so that we can stay clear and focused. But that takes extra work. I mean, I am spending more time writing and making sure I get out in fresh air and talking to friends just to help me keep my mindset in the right place. Like I'm working harder at it to stay in a good place. But no matter what, sometimes it feels like you're just getting punched in the face. And that's what things like this COVID thing have done to people. It hurts. It really does in lots of ways. Companies have had to lay off between 10% and 98% of their valued team members. That is hard on the team members and the leaders that have to make those calls. So all kinds of challenging, and the punishment will continue. For some people, it feels like you get punched by this guy, by good old Mike Tyson. And for some people, getting punched by a guy like Tyson, I'm sure if he punched me in the head, it probably knocked me out instantly, like many of us. And some people probably feel like they're getting knocked out. But the key is you got to find a way to get back up again and see the possibilities and the good to move on and not get knocked down by the knockout. And that is the hard part for some people. Some people bounce better than others, or some people bounce better in different situations. So we want to share tools with you to help you to bounce today. And the thing for you to understand for context is this gravity of growth model that I'm developing as part of my new book, is that there's this matrix of performance, and performance goes up as stress continues. So as stress goes up, performance goes from, you go from being bored, engaged, to your sweet spot where you do your best work up at the top there. And then, but when the stress continues, you get to burnout, meltdown, and beyond that is suicide or really getting hurt. And right now, there's a lot of people, because of the stress of being burnt out or meltdown, just never mind the situation, not being able to do the activities you would normally do if you liked going to the gym or swimming at the community center, or having all of the people that you know and care about around you 24/7. In theory, it might be nice, but it's hard for some people. So all kinds of things that are making it challenging right now and make the stress hard. And our stress really would be 2 or 5 times what it normally is for many people, whether you realize it or not. I am much more tired than I normally am. I feel like I'm jet lagged, yet I haven't been on a plane in a month. And so the idea is that we have an opportunity to push up and into this higher level, with this higher level of stress, to grow and adapt and be more capable and comfortable performing at that level. And that's what a lot of this is about. Hey, Jordan. Jordan's calling in from France. I feel for you, Jordan. Connecting with Jordan over the last couple of days. We think we're locked down in North America. They're like, you can't leave without a note. Jordan, good to see you here. So the idea of these situations, the gravity of these situations, that throws us down back to where we used to be, the crave for a simpler life. Do I want to buy a cabin in the woods and grow my own food and not go around humans the rest of my life? Or if you're in this trying to make it work, getting pushed down where there's the burnout and the stress and just exhaustion, which is happening for a lot of people right now. And this brings into the challenge with mental health. And I just want to share this with you. If you've seen it before, awesome. If not, you need to pay attention to this. Mental health gets strained. I'm pretty sure I went into orange or maybe even light red in the first week because of some of my clients having some massive debilitating problems. And then I got my head around it and adapted, and they came probably back into the yellow range. The point is, our mood, anxiety, mindset, work, cognition, sleep, health, all these things get affected because of these situations. The last one, coping. One of our clients owns a chain of liquor stores. Their sales are through the roof because, one, people are stuck at home and they're buying from a retail channel versus the food and beverage, the restaurant channel. And it's a normal coping skill. We've been having late night sessions working on these PowerPoints like we did last night, and everyone's got their glass of wine or their cocktail as we're doing it. I enjoy good wine. I know, Al, you enjoy good wine too. And many of you do. But the point is, and that's okay. Now, if you're drinking a couple bottles a day, maybe a bit of a problem. If you start drinking it while you're doing your webinars or doing your live stuff, then you might seek some help. Point of it being is that the mental health gets in the way, And we got to watch for changes in this and make sure that if it happens to us or others, that they get the professional help they need, because that means they're slipping down this curve from the normal good mindset or yellow, getting a bit tired, down into a dangerous zone. And we got to take care of ourselves and others in those places, because it's hard to get out on your own. You generally need a psychologist or someone like that to help you get out, because your brain gets a little bit screwy and you have weird thoughts. Good thing is, psychologists and counselors are all working through Zoom and that these days, so they're easily accessible. Many of your companies have benefit programs where you have access to things. And then there's mental health hotlines everywhere. Just type in mental health hotline, no matter what city in the world you're in, something's going to pop up. So there's this mental health action plan. It's instead of the normal first aid we've learned about, it's mental health first aid. It's this algae model. The point of it is, if people are orange or red, they need help. Because what we're talking about today is, if you've got situations that are getting you down, we're going to talk to you about changing your mindset. That's awesome. But sometimes what we're teaching you is not enough. And that's what the professionals are for. You know, I've got a counselor / therapist that I've been talking to recently about some of the stuff I'm wanting to figure out. It just helps, you know, and she's an awesome one, because I can text her. I talked to her last night about something I wanted to talk to her about. I can just text her and find a time and talk to her. She's one of these very flexible types. And I've had coaches I've worked with for years to talk about the stuff in my brain and help me work on my own mental resilience and sometimes emotional maturity too. So the point of it is that, you know, getting the right help is the key to manage this beyond if what we're sharing today isn't enough. And keep this in mind. We're happy to share these slides around mental health with anyone. Even our firm, we're offering for our clients to do a free 20 or 30-minute talk on mental health and mental resilience. Because if I'm going to tell you the truth, this year, this is going to become a serious problem. We're concerned about the virus and, you know, people's ability to breathe properly. I get it. I'm concerned about people's mental health. Similarly, maybe more, because after the virus goes through, the repercussions are very hard on our mindsets. Very, especially when we have to stay away from our fellow tribe members that normally heal us, and they're telling us not to go near the source of our healing, which is the tribe, connection, laughter, hugging the people we care about, etc. So we got to defy that gravity growth to stay in that sweet spot, and mindset is the biggest portion of it. It's all about our perspective that we have and the actions that we take. Unfortunately, when we get knocked down, sometimes we lose perspective and we don't take the right actions. Again, that's why we have to remember the two sides of the coin. So let's get right into this. So love the lessons. Is that how good are you at seeing the benefits in those biggest challenges you face in work and life? And your biggest challenge might not even be around this virus thing. It might be other things. But seeing how it's good for us and how we grow, remembering that we're resilient, remembering that this too shall pass, and remembering that 99% chance that we're going to be fine and safe through this, we're just probably going to have to change a bunch of things and think and act differently. So I love this quote from the amazing Nelson Mandela. I never lose. I either win or learn. And that's really what this is about. You know, things, your investment portfolio might go up, might go down. You know, things might change. Your job might change. The people you work with might change, whatever it happens to be. But in the end, either it succeeds or I learn so I can succeed more in the future. And this is the root of this thing called a growth mindset out of that book. I'll remember the name of it in a moment. And that's the mindset that we need to have. But a lot of people slip into the victim mentality. Woe is me. This is not right. This is not fair. The government's not doing the right job. I'm not doing a good job. You're not doing a good job. This is horrible. I can't imagine it being worse. You know, and it goes on and on. And hey, we all slip into the victim mentality sometimes. All of us, myself included. But it's a horrible place to get stuck. And it's very, very easy to get stuck there in a loop. And by the way, there's all kinds of reinforcement mechanisms. One called the media. The media will help you reinforce this victim mentality. You know, other people around you that are not in a good place will often reinforce a victim mentality. And this is where having the right people and the right conversations and the right thoughts makes a massive difference. Because there is a victim mentality. Victim mentality is like one side of the coin. But we got to remember that there's another one, and how do we get there? So the question for you, and let's use the chat for this. How do you feel when someone around you is stuck and keeps complaining about a problem? and they're kind of in that victim mentality. Like what comes up for you? What's the experience that you have? What do you think? What do you feel? So just take a second and write into the chat your own thoughts around that. You can do it anonymously. It's a Q&A. You can do it anonymously. Is that right? Tim, is that right? Q&A is anonymous?
So Q&A is anonymous. There's a little button in the bottom left corner. Yeah. So if you'd prefer that, that's an easy way to do it. Or you can also just send directly to Kevin and I as just a panelist, and we won't share your name. No problem.
Exactly. Yeah. If you want to do that, you're welcome to. So I know my experience is I find it very draining. Like at some point I can only listen to so much. You know, there's a person here, I will say, with a first name. So first name Kelsey is saying it gets exhausting. It does. Like I can notice it's like someone's tapping into my energy and it's just draining it out. Like someone's siphoning the gas out of your car. And that is absolutely what no matter what. Now, there's a part of it where we need to vent. We just need to, you know, in my world, I'll just say, I'm going to vent. That's fine. But some people can't, after they vent, get into action. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit more. So the other day, what happens when you're in that mode? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was just going to tell you some of the other comments. We're getting some good things through the chat right now. So
awesome. Yeah. So we got here, so we got people, there we go. Great, thank you. You can get sucked in. They need to get a grip. That they need to get a grip, yes. That's what you start thinking, like, come on. Sometimes resentful, absolutely, I've been there. You know, they need us to listen to them, understand their problem, and allow them to talk through it. Yes, Reem, that is we do need to do that. And then at some point, either they feel better because they've talked about it. Perfect. Or they need to go doing something. Perfect. But it's when they stay there and next time you see them, it's still the same thing and nothing has changed. Like good old Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. Yeah, Mo saying it's draining. Mark saying they need to get over to move on. Yeah, absolutely. So, and as empathetic friends and family and colleagues, you know, we want to listen to people. But at some point, it's a bit much because they keep cycling. And at some point, we don't want to communicate with them. In a business context, they actually end up being problems because they don't move on and they waste so much energy stuck in this stuff that they're not going and getting something done. So there's this book called The Empowerment Dynamic by David Emerald. Interesting book. And it talks about Cartman's drama triangle. And the root of it is that we get stuck to this thing called victim mode. And the victim needs a persecutor and it seeks a rescuer. And the challenge is it creates incredible problems in companies and in families. So let's assume that I've got a problem with Tim. And Tim is driving me crazy. It would probably be the reverse scenario if we're going to look at the truth. But then I go and I'm going to pick Bob on the list here. I am going to go and I go talk to Bob. Yeah, this Tim guy, he drives me crazy. He's always so damn happy and la, 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 you know, and I go vent to Bob. Now, many times deep down inside, I would love Bob to go talk to Tim and straighten Tim out. And if Bob's a sucker, he will. Oh, you know, I know that Tim guy. I'll have a chat for you. And I'm like, yes, thank you. I handed my problem off with Tim over to Bob. Bob's my rescuer. He'll straighten him out. Problem is, when Bob goes and talks to Tim, it gets real messy. Tim thinks I'm talking behind his back. Bob's going to give Tim crap. And now Tim's going to feel like the victim. Now Tim is going to look at me as the persecutor. And it's a thing called a doom loop. Like our relationship just becomes a gong show. Where really, you know, when you're a victim, instead you got to be a creator. Realize that you are a creator of everything in your own world. Passion-based, outcome-focused. I would look at Tim as a challenger, and I would look at someone else as a coach to help me how to work with Tim. But I would embrace the challenger and find ways to learn and grow and move ahead. So you can read more about this. The point is, when you're in victim mode, our natural instincts are wrong. By the way, when Bob goes and deals with my problem with Tim, how does it make me feel about myself? Usually weaker, because Bob has reinforced that I am weak because he had to go deal with my problem. Bob had to tie my shoes for me because I couldn't do it myself. So it reinforces my victimness. So it's so screwy. But when you're trapped into it, it's also very difficult to change. So I'll give you an example of the idea that we're trying to get to. So one of the companies we worked with, very successful company, had a mediocre CFO. Well, actually, they weren't a CFO. They were like a controller or a head accountant trying to be a CFO. Long story short, they're going along running the business. The CEO is out there driving, building this thing, not really paying a huge attention to the numbers, trusting the finance person to do it. And then they get a call and the guy sheepishly says to the CEO in a meeting, we're going to have a cash crunch next week. Okay. And the CEO is like, okay, great. What do we got to do? Well, we probably need about $3 million extra next week that we don't have. Otherwise, we can't pay our bills and operate, and we're going to be offside with the bank. So that's fairly last minute. And so the CEO had to go and raise $3 million in 7 days. Well, the only way you could do that is like this: hand out to friends and family. And obviously, not only is it stressful, it's embarrassing. It's a sign of very, very poor management that I go this week asking for $3 million next week. And this business was doing $120 million of revenue at the time. So you can imagine the CEO was pissed off, frustrated, woe is me, victim mentality like you wouldn't believe. I mean, they did get the money. I started laughing after we got it. When we talked about it, look, this is awesome. Like, what's the learning here? And we had a debrief after the CEO was upset with me. We had a debrief and the CEO goes, it's my fault. I'm not on the numbers. And I know I have a mediocre person who's not proactive running the numbers. I need someone that owns it, waves the flag 2 or 3 months early, tells me to pay attention because I'm not good at paying attention. So out of this, they became very grateful. And what came is they got a phenomenal CFO. We got an ex-packaged goods guy, like an ex-Procter & Gamble guy. CFO who'd come in, master of numbers, modeling, forecasting, hedging currencies, all this stuff a CFO should do. And the CEO, we made a commitment, the CEO was going to spend more time with the CFO learning to be a master of the numbers themselves. So they learned a great lesson. It embarrassed them, and they saw that it got them to build a notably stronger team. And now that CFO in these crazy times is an A++. The work that CFO is doing in a company is magic, like magical. So they ended up with a spectacular right hand, but they had to go through it. And that's what we're trying to get to is how do you quickly go from seeing the downside, feeling the pain because it's painful, but shifting yourself to see the good side, acting on it, and then coming out stronger. And that's kind of what we're dealing with in our society right now too. So appreciate those painful experiences that make you smarter and stronger, and look for that as soon as you kind of calm down a little bit. And ideally we shift very quickly. And pushing through that pain allows you to evolve and motivates you to get stronger too, because you have to. And we call this, in simple terms in the book, is woe to wow. And yes, it's simple. It's you got to shift from the woe is me to the wow, this is an amazing learning experience that's going to make me stronger. And if it doesn't kill me, it will make me stronger. So woe to wow is what you're trying to get yourself and your people to do. So how do you know if you really got to pay attention to this? Well, you're generally unaware or in disbelief that 99% of your story about any challenge is pure fabrication. Essentially, that when you're in woe is me mode, you're looking at one side of the coin, but there's really so many other possibilities that you're just stuck in a default victim story. 2, you easily get stuck in woe thinking about your past struggles. You still think woe about stuff in the past. When a new struggle arises, you quickly start to produce thoughts about how challenging your life is and you wish this wouldn't happen to you. Again, victim statements come out of your mouth real fast for more than a little bit. We're all allowed to have a little victim. You don't get your lessons. It's almost a spiritual principle that if you keep getting the same problems again and again and again, it's because you haven't learned. So learn your lesson and get the more advanced problems. It's kind of like getting stuck in grade 7 math. If you don't graduate the grade 7 math class, well, then you're going to take it again and again. So graduate the class, work on more advanced problems. And when obstacles arise, you get stuck. You don't have a mechanism. Like we all get stuck. Generally, I got about 15 different people I call when I get stuck for different situations so I can move through them quickly so that I don't. Again, you need outside people to help you. So here's the secret, the simple secret that will help you with this is gratitude. It's it. When someone causes you pain, if you can quickly find a way to be grateful for it. And I will tell you, I've created a number of bad situations. I've had many business partners over the year. I don't partner well, and they normally don't end well. I know that. But when a partnership has gone bad, of course I want to blame them for everything. But from all the partnerships or things that I've done that haven't worked out, I am able to fairly quickly, depending on the intensity, but I always get to, what am I grateful for? What did I learn? Basically, what did I get for my tuition? Because often these things cost me a bunch of cash and pain. And so it's like, I'm grateful for whatever I've got. I've got one person that I worked with that drove me bonkers. Drove me absolute bonkers. But I learned like 4 amazing things from that bonkers experience that were well worth the pain and the cash. So the sooner we can feel grateful about the experience, that means we've cleaned up a lot of the weird stuff, and then we're able to move ahead. And sometimes it does take some extra help, though. We cannot do it on our own, and that's the key point here. Sometimes we get so trapped in our own brains. And you know, for example, if we go to a seafood restaurant, which won't be happening for a while, but when we do, or if you did, and you eat some bad shellfish, our body has an automatic mechanism to get it out. It automatically removes it from our system in one way or the other. It's not pleasant, but it knows how to remove the poison from our system. So that's physical poison. But when we have mental or toxic poison, nobody teaches us how to get it out. And you do. So if you take in 100 units of poison from a bad experience or some, bad trauma, you've got to actually find a way to get it out. And I'll show you an example sooner. But if you don't, it takes a long time to leave its system on its own, like decades. That's why people have this thing called baggage, poison that's got in their system, and they're letting it come out naturally, and it's a slow process. So sometimes talking to friends about it is wonderful. It can be a trauma like this. It can be a death in the family, but talking about it, which is something most people don't want to do, but continually talking about it helps to accelerate the drain of the poison in your system. It's super important. And again, these days, phone, Zoom, where we are, we can still go for a walk with a friend. You just gotta, stay like really far away. Venting, and venting, and however you do this, whether it's on paper, talking about it on the phone, talking to a counselor, a therapist, whatever, yelling and screaming. So I have a funny story. I have a client that lives in this place called the United States of America. Great client. They're not overly a big fan of their president. They never have been. And we were talking 2 days ago, and they're going, I'm starting to get all of these headaches. And I realized it was because of the president of my country, the person said. But they came up with a great solution. They got a pillow, and a pillow like this one here, pillows in my sounding, and then they would just pound the crap out of the pillow for 5 minutes every morning. Headache's gone. So for them, literally, it was a physical vent of the internal stress about someone they weren't a big fan of, actually made them feel notably better, and they got it out of their system. Many people would do it through working out. Some people do it through fighting. It doesn't really matter, but somehow getting the energy out of your body. I do it through writing a lot, talking with people I care about, and then writing. When I sit down with pen and paper, it's magical. I don't even know how to describe it. I get clear, grounded, because there's so much going on in my world. And when I do that, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not telling you how to do it. I'm giving you ideas here. But I want to share an example with you. One of my aunt was a professor of psychology at one of the major universities in Canada. And I remember she told me a story one night at dinner, and I'll never forget it. And she was a very understated, quiet woman, and super smart. Obviously, as a psychology professor. But she said that she used to work with, do special work with the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And there was an incident up north in a city near, in northern British Columbia. And it happened about 25 years previous. And she was called in for somebody that was off work, an RCMP officer that was off work for mental health challenges and stress leave. And so as she was talking to him, through the conversation, found out that he early in his career, like the first 5 years of his career, had seen a horrific accident on the side of a highway, somewhat like this, except for it involved a family in a family vehicle. We don't need to talk about it any more than that. But that incident was insanely traumatic for him. And as a result, he had never, and that, back and then you never talked about this stuff. So he'd held on to it. Well, what they found is that when they were talking, he remembered the entire evening of that accident, the whole accident scene in like full, what we would call today 4K video, full 4K. And he never talked about it. So he was holding the 1,000 units of energy from that horrific sight that he had seen in his system. So his system was full of toxic mental seafood, and he felt horrible, and it affected him horribly throughout his life. She said that in the hour and a half they spent together, he started to recount it and create a space for him just to recount the scene and tell the story, because he didn't want to tell his family. He didn't want to talk to his colleagues about it. He kept this secret to himself, basically. The emotional secret, people knew about the accident. But she said she could see like 1,000 pounds of weight come off his shoulders just as he talked about it for the first time in his life. And that's what happens with these tough situations, is that if we just ball it up and sit on it, it eats us inside. We wonder why we don't feel good. We wonder why we might feel depressed or don't want to get out of bed in the morning or get grumpy. We wonder why the doctor wants to give us little pills to try and stabilize our mental state. And the reality is usually there's a lot of stuff inside of us that gets stuck. And that's what this is about. If you're stuck in seeing the downside, or even just with a huge amount of emotional pain, it's going to burden you. You got to find ways to move on from this stuff. And it's not just forget about it. You actually have to drain it out of your system in many cases. So we have a tool in the book called the venting template. I'll share it with you. It's magic. I don't remember the source. I couldn't find the source when I published the book. I did make a note of that, but it was shared with me probably 25 years ago. It is a way to go through and process painful situations that are still bothering you and find a way to get to gratitude and appreciate them. So here's the simple version of it. And basically it's about breaking the ties or the chains that are holding you back. So it's shifting from woe to wow. So basically the idea is you take and write. You could talk about this. Your therapist would have a different tool or counselor, but this is one for you to test. And you take each of these prompts and you might write half a page on it. And if you do it right, you're going to want to burn it or shred it when you're done, because you're really going to let it rip. Like when I'm writing, I have a shredder probably 25 feet away from me that as soon as I finish journaling in the morning, I go shred it because I don't want to read it again. And sometimes I definitely wouldn't want someone else to read it. So I hate it when, it hurt me when, I was afraid that, by the way, all the stuff relates to what we're dealing with right now. I'm sorry that if it involves another person, all I ever wanted was, I understand that. And the final prompt, I forgive you for. And again, you could do this about this COVID thing. This could be a friend, family worker, colleague, supplier, it doesn't matter. I thank you for, and then I'm better off now because. And that final statement is the whole point. You got to get the poison out of your system so you can get to this place where I'm better off now because. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. Hey, David, great to see you. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is the aspiration. And that's why, counselors, therapists, support groups, other things sometimes are required to get there, because that means you've got it out of your system and now you can be stuck with the residual memory of don't do that again, but the residual appreciation for how that thing made you better and or stronger. So it's in the book or the workbook. I'll give you a link. You can download it, but it's a great way for you others to process stuff on your own. And you still might need to go see an expert on it, but it's a tool you can have. And in the end, if you end up having these kinds of thoughts within a couple seconds of thinking about it, then you're probably on the right track. And hey, if you don't have historical events that you feel weird about, well, congratulations. Don't worry about this stuff. You can skip this section, but many of us do. And I have had to work through this many, many, many times. And that way I can have a clean mindset. Because at the end of the day, you can't buy freedom. Financial freedom is a bit of a farce. Enough money can allow you not to have to work and make money. But freedom is truly mental and emotional, to be able to be comfortable with the circumstance you're in and not to sit here and get sucked into the past or have a bunch of trauma or drama or triggers that really, really screw you up. So woe to wow is what we're trying to do here. So here's the thing I'd like you to think about right now and make a note. This is in the workbook. We'll give you a link to download it for free. Tim, you want to throw that in the chat too? Just lawrenceandco.com/O2 as in oxygen. You can download the book or the audiobook. I think I've got a slide here for that, but think about a painful challenge of the past, something that really like was hard on you. And then think about how did you get stronger? Because that's what this is about. So think of something that was brutally hard at the time. You're like, my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. But then in the end, it made you a better person or a stronger person. Think about that for a second. Make a note. I remember it was probably grade 3, 4, 5, something like that. I had a kid, kind of the bully kid in my neighborhood who I had a horrible experience with. And like, his name was Alex. And if I saw him today, I would actually thank him for what he did, because it changed my perspective and had me think that I would be a person that people would always respect and wouldn't disrespect like that again. But I went through a process with my coach, venting template, like talking it through. But to this day, I wouldn't be who I am without that. You know, my dad had to change jobs early in my life, and my mom got hurt at work. So we had some financial stress in our family. You know, I wouldn't change that. That made me strong, independent, and brought out the entrepreneur in me. Some people would say, oh, worst thing ever. I'm thinking it's the best thing ever in the end, not at the time, in the end, because it built my character. You know, which is a funny note. You know, there's all these jokes about, you know, millennials and, you know, being entitled. Yes, Tim, I know you're a millennial. You're an awesome millennial. But, you know, being entitled and, you know, expecting everyone to do everything for them. Well, that's fixed. There ain't going to be any more entitled to anyone right now, because everyone's going to have to hustle and learn what challenging times are like. So, yes. Tim, you're a millennial, aren't you?
I think I'm just outside of that group.
Are you? Oh, okay. Well, close. Anyway, so now that, you know, think about this. So that was a historical. Think about recently. So think about a struggle that has really tested you recently. How has it caused you pain? Let's think about that for a second. How did the struggle cause you pain? What was the learning that you did get from it? If you didn't, getting the learning is how you start to move on. What did I get? You know, it's basically, if I lost a few $100,000 on a bad investment, done that a few times. What did I learn? You know, by the way, I call it my PhD account. Sorry, I don't have a PhD, and but I have a very well-funded PhD account. These mistakes that keep making me stronger. And I want to make sure I extract the learning and get my money's worth for the pain. And then, you know, what are the things that you are you or can you be grateful for? So how can you be grateful for these situations? Like this whole COVID thing, I'm grateful. It's brought my team together like you wouldn't believe. I made it a priority to spend time with my kids almost every single day, more than I might have in some other cases. It's forced us to do more webinars. We've been thinking about doing more webinars for a long time. We're doing them every week. We thought about doing, you know, forums for all of our CEOs around the world. We got CEOs that we do lots of, we're doing CEO forums every week. We got one later today for a bunch of people that are alumni of our Jim Collins program that we do. You know, so I've been thinking about doing that. I've been thinking about doing video newsletters, doing that. Like we got a whole bunch of stuff that instantly kicked into gear. So what can you be grateful for around this or something recently? So these are thoughts that kind of help to get your brain to move. So now I want to go to, okay, I would recommend you take what is a challenge you're facing today, directly or indirectly because of this virus thing. What is a challenge that you're currently facing because of it? Maybe not, maybe it's not it. So take a second and write down, what is a challenge that you are facing? And if you want to throw some of these in the chat, that would be awesome. So what is a challenge you're facing either directly or indirectly because of this whole virus thing? What is my biggest, I'm trying to think. Our biggest challenge is helping clients through this. I'm trying to think what mine is. Anyways, take a second. What is that biggest challenge? People throw it in the chat. Thanks, Tim. Tim's just keeping me on track in terms of time. So Christy's saying here, I think there's usually a way bigger problem than the one at hand for the person. It's a matter of perspective. Wallowing is allowed, but needs a timeline. Absolutely. Yeah, you can pout about it, whether it's for 2 minutes or 2 days, but it's not 2 months or 2 years. And And yes, there's often whatever you're experiencing, it's triggering something underneath if you haven't cleaned up your stuff in almost every case. There's what it looks to be. It's like the old iceberg. Well, it looks to be, and it's what it actually is. So now think about, okay, what's your story? What's the story? Because most of the stuff is not true. It's just a perspective. So what is the story that you are telling yourself? What is the story you're telling yourself about this tough situation? Pardon me. And then now, what could be what we call a wow story? What could you be appreciating about the challenge? So David's got determining when we have to plan for the rebound and its shape. Yeah, that's what everyone's trying to figure out. When does things get back to normal-ish? And how do we manage that? So let's take that one, David's example. So the challenge is the situations affecting our business. And imagine you're in the hospitality business, hotels, restaurants, all that stuff, they're all being affected, except for if you're some that might be delivery only or drive-through type things. Still probably affected, I would guess. What's your woe story? Wow, this is horrible. This is painful. This is whatever it happens to be. This is tough. It's hard on the business. But what's the wow story, right? What could you be thinking about this? Like, wow, it's going to make us innovate our business. One CEO said, hey, we get the opportunity to look at our business with a complete clean slate, right? And we get to reinvent our business model. Others have said we get the opportunity to take a leadership position by coming out of this with some of the best programs for our customers to feel safe and our employees to be safe. Some people are saying it's a great opportunity to recruit some amazing talent because not all companies are going to handle this well. A couple more comments from David. Making more connections than ever before. Reconnected with people I wouldn't have done if I wasn't at home. Absolutely. Watched more webinars and learned more forever for free. Yes, David. There was a lot of people out there trying to offer good stuff to help out. So the reality is no matter what your situation, so I'll give you another example. I had taken an investment. I have an investment I made. And every time I drive up to the Okanagan, I still see a bunch of my cash up in the mountains that we did this development in that fell on its face. The woe story, woe is me, I lost my money, got taken advantage of, whatever it happens to be. The wow story, well, that money I lost in the side of that mountain, I might still get some of it back one day, but that money I lost made me a much smarter investor, gave me much better criteria to select my partners I invest with, and 3, trained me to listen to my instincts because I had a funny feeling and I knew better. So that money, I've more than made it up in other investments, but I had to learn the hard way sometimes. So that was a deposit into my investment management education, and it's more than paid for itself. So the magic question, and really this is important in terms of for yourself and self-management when you're in the middle of these things is, what can I do? What can I do with this situation? Because when you're in victim mode and in woe is me mode, you don't do. You just talk, vent, and go in circles. And again, that's okay for a period of time. But then as soon as you get into what I can do, not only do you feel better, but then things happen to give you evidence of feeling good and enjoying what you're doing and looking for the returns from it or the learning from it or how can you progress. And I know lots of you are in that, but taking that time, what can I be grateful for? How is this going to be good for me? What can I do? And that is where we need to be with all of these challenges that we're facing. So here are some suggested things that you can do on this. Daily gratitude practice. Yes, the idea is as old as the hills, right up there with daily meditation. But daily gratitude and what are you grateful for truly, like being where you are living and having power and water or whatever degree of freedom or resources you have. And then can you be grateful for this challenging circumstance? And then talk to someone or write to yourself when you're stuck. Like my solution is to reach out and talk to people. I write myself and then, okay, boom, I'll talk to accountant, lawyer, friend, coach, colleague, family member, mother, sister, kids, whatever it happens to be. Use that venting template if you're really stuck in, like if you can't get yourself unstuck on it, and it helps you to change a painful story, where it's a current one or a past one. And ideally, and again, if it's something you really have, then they get help with a counselor or therapist. They are all the best people use them. Then one of the secrets of the boardroom is most of the highest performers I know at some point or on a regular point use therapists, counselors or people to help them unpack the weird stuff in their head so they can release the burden and go and do better stuff. And then finally take some sort of a step. So summary on this, we talk about no pain, no gain. Well, there is pain and there is gain, but we're trying to shift from pain to gain. That's the whole idea, is to take a situation and get the good from it and then let go of the bad so we're not haunted by it in the future. And remember, there's always two sides to every coin. There's a awesome story and a painful story, and usually many, many more perspectives. Yes, we're getting punched in the head right now. Everybody's getting punched in the head in some way, and we bounce. We recover, we're resilient. We always find ways to improve in these things. We just got to stay healthy and connected to the people we care about. Be careful with mental health, because that's a sign that things are getting to you. By the way, usually the root of a lot of mental health is these specific things that are getting to us. It's these issues that are stuck in our system, using that bad seafood metaphor. That is the root of a lot of mental health. And just pure stress, because stress is normally a story. People think they're going to die, but they're not going to die, or the world's going to come to the end, but it's not. But easy to say, in the middle of it, we need help. And watch out for the sliding down that hill. Be careful of that victim mentality. You're allowed to have it for a bit. Have a venting session, freak out, it's cool. Boom, let's get back to work or get back at it. Don't allow Groundhog Day. Get back to gratitude. Knowing the extra help is required. Counselors and therapists will probably be the busiest they've ever been. As long as people still have an ability to pay, I recommend it highly. It helps. Talking to your friends is also really, really good. They're just not experts if it gets really weird. Vent it out, write it out, vent it out in the venting template, and try to stay in these emotions, because when you're in these emotions, generally most things go better. It's just work to train your brain not to get stuck in the negative ones. So final thoughts. Out of this, what was most valuable? If you want to put your thoughts into the chat. And then if there's any other questions, we can take some questions right now as well. David, you're doing lots of good things. David, that's awesome. Very good stuff. Thanks for sharing that. So if you have any questions or anything, we'll show. Otherwise, we'll wrap up early. I'll share my final thought with you. If you need any assistance on this, anything that we can be a sounding board for, and when it's around mental health, we're not gonna charge you for it. We're gonna direct you, put you in the right direction, or help shift your perspective. And we want people to be. We got a whole team of here, people who love to help, and we'll make time when people really need it. I told you about a great team. So from the great late Kobe Bryant, everything negative presents challenges, and all of them are opportunities for me to grow, to rise. Sorry, for him to rise. As he used to do when he would, rise up and take those beautiful shots. So, there's good in everything. It's just hard sometimes, and we got to work at keeping a healthy, strong mindset. I wish you guys well. Good luck with this. And at the end of the day, remember that we always come out of this better. We just got to deal with the weirdness in between. And this is probably not an instantaneous situation. It will not be an instantaneous rebound. And yes, thanks, Reem. Don't allow your subconscious to control you. You need to be in charge of your brain. All right. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I wish you well. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll hang on for a couple minutes if there's any other questions.
Sounds great, Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Michelle, good to see you there. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. And let me just stop the recording.